LEGO Batman 2 DC Superheroes is a great sequel to LEGO Batman the video game that expands in a good way, not just for LEGO Batman games, but for LEGO games in general. I may love the original more mainly because I am nostalgic for it, but this game is definitely as enjoyable as it, and I like it just as much. This was also the first video game I ever 100% completed and got the Platinum Trophy for, so I really enjoyed this game. But like all games, it isn't perfect. So in this video, I'm going over the 5 best and worst things about LEGO Batman 2 DC Superheroes. The number 5 worst is that there is too much of the Joker robot. The Joker robot gets introduced at the end of level 9, and you spend a lot of the rest of the game trying to take this thing out. It doesn't get defeated until the last level. That's like a third of the story focused on this robot. You don't spend the whole time in those levels fighting the robot, but still, it keeps coming back. I think it looks cool and all, but it just stays around too long. The number 5 best is that there's a right amount of other heroes. I like the LEGO Batman games to be focused on mainly Batman and Robin and his villains, and the first game did that really well with no other heroes. This game introduced other heroes like mainly Superman and other members of the Justice League, which makes sense since this game is called LEGO Batman 2 DC Superheroes. But this game did it right with cool interactions between Superman and Batman and the other heroes really only appearing near the end. I think LEGO Batman 3 went too far with it being a lot less focused on Batman, and that's why I think LEGO Batman 2 did it perfectly. The number 4 worst is how the suits work in free play. Like the first LEGO Batman game, there are suits for Batman and Robin that show up on these platforms throughout the game that help you proceed through the levels and give variety in the gameplay. For free play, you may need the suits for mini kits to complete the game, but my problem is you may need a suit that you get earlier in the level and you don't know if you need it for a mini kit later on, and then you switch it and can't go back to it later in the level. The only way to get that mini kit now would be to replay the level and make sure you keep that suit. Also, if your character has a suit and you switch your character to a different character in the menu, you will lose that suit. This problem is fixed in LEGO Batman 3 because once you unlock a suit, you keep it for the rest of the game, but it was really annoying in this game. The number 4 best is the voice acting. Some people have mixed feelings on the voice acting in LEGO games and like the mumbles better, but I think the voice acting really works when LEGO games are telling their own story and it helps flesh out that story more. I think all of the voice acting in this game is great. Batman, Joker, Superman, and Lex Luthor, to name a few, are really fantastic, and I know at least some of these voice actors voice these characters in other places. Like Troy Baker goes on to play Batman in the Telltale games, and he also was great as the Joker in Arkham Origins. I think that it is really cool that he is good at voicing both, but voice acting in LEGO games started with this game, and I really think it improved all LEGO games after this. The number 3 worst is the less variety of villains, mainly in the main story. LEGO Batman 1 did it well, with a bunch of different Batman villains, and you fought a different villain in almost every level. In this game though, you fight a few different villains early on, in the first few levels, but then it just focuses on Joker and Lex Luthor, which I understand probably helps the story, but I just like how LEGO Batman 1 did it. A lot of other villains appear in the open world, and you can fight them there, but they are less focused on. The number 3 best is the story. I really like when LEGO games have their own story, and I think this one is done pretty well. I enjoyed the introduction of Lex, and I like his plan and how it acts out in the story. There are some cool moments in the story, like when Joker and Lex destroy the Batcave and Lex is trying to run for president. It isn't perfect and it has some dull moments, like I think the Chemical Crisis level is a little boring and maybe too long, but overall I really enjoyed this story, and I think the voice acting played into that. The number 2 worst is the random criminals in the open world. So there are always criminals running around and chasing civilians in the open world, but they aren't always attacking you. Sometimes randomly, goons just show up and start attacking you, and it's very annoying. And I guess that's the point, but I just got tired of it because I kept trying to do stuff and they wouldn't leave me alone. Maybe it would have been better if after the story this would stop happening, because that would make sense, but it never stops. The number 2 best is the open world. This is the first LEGO game to really have a big full open world, and it is Gotham here. It looks really cool and it is fun to explore and collect stuff. There are a lot of cool locations to visit like Wayne Tower, Wayne Manor, and the Batcave, and even Gotham Zoo. It's always fun to drive the Batmobile and use vehicles around Gotham, and a big open world like this gives a reason for collecting all of the vehicles. It would be nice if it wasn't always so dark and gloomy, but that is kind of the point of Gotham. The number 1 worst is flying. The controls for flying are horrible, mainly for characters. It isn't as bad for vehicles, and that's what I use to complete flying races, but controlling flying characters is really hard to control where you are going, especially if you are trying to land in a specific spot or to get in a specific area. I didn't want to fly most of the time, and I only used it when I had to, to. Most of the time, to get around Gotham, I used the Batmobile or the Flash. The flying controls are a little better in later games, but this was the first LEGO game that really had flying controls, so I understand why they were bad, but I still hate it. The number one best is that it improved the future of LEGO games. This game was the start of a new era for LEGO games, and all my previous best entries kind of tie into this. This was the first one to have voice acting in a full open world. It changed how LEGO games were made after this. Some people don't like the changes that this game made, but I think those changes were a good thing that made LEGO games not just fun, simple games, which they still are, but I feel now you can get more invested into the story and the game as a whole. You may prefer the simple times of grunts and simple stories, but this game changed all LEGO games after this, and I think for the better. So that was my 5 best and worst things about LEGO Batman 2 DC Superheroes. I might like LEGO Batman 1 more because of my experiences, but they both have their ups and downs, and they are both enjoyable in different ways. But anyway, that's all I have to say. See you next time, goodbye.